Hi, and welcome to a Life Soul podcast, where we explore personal growth, high performance, and intentional living. I am Wasim Balani, and I believe life isn't just about getting through the day, it's about becoming fully alive in everything we do. Through my journey, whether in medicine as a heart rhythm cardiologist, cycling and running, or personal development, I've learned that success isn't just about reaching goals, but about who we become along the way. This podcast is here to inspire and challenge you to push your limits, cultivate discipline, and live with purpose. Join me each week as we dive into ideas, reflections, and practical strategies to help you grow into your best self. So let's get started. Hello everyone, and welcome back to a Life Soul podcast. Have you ever gone through a stretch at work where you handled everything that came your way? You showed up, you did what was required, you met expectations, and yet, by the end of the day, instead of feeling fulfilled, you just felt drained. Not because you failed, not because you were not capable, but because something inside you felt a little more depleted than it should have been. This weekend, I had 2 days in the hospital that looked almost identical from the outside. Same setting, same responsibilities, same patient workload. But internally, they felt very different. And that contrast made me reflect on something important about overwhelm, and how, if we don't manage it well, it can slowly drift into something deeper. It can drift into burnout. The first day was busy, but not unusually chaotic. I had a lot of patients to round on, and I found myself moving from room to room with that familiar mindset: if I just keep going without stopping, maybe I'll finish earlier. So I didn't really pause. I didn't incorporate any reset moments in that day. And on top of that, I was fasting that day, which I've done many times before, and I was fine. But I was also coming off a few nights of less sleep and probably not enough hydration. None of those things alone would have been a big deal, but together they reduced my capacity and energy more than I realized. And by the end of the day, I was so exhausted. I still did my job well. I treated my patients with care. Nothing dramatic went wrong, but I noticed I wasn't as present as I could have been. I wasn't taking those extra moments to connect intentionally. I was efficient, but not deeply engaged. Physically, I was there. Mentally, I was just functioning, but emotionally, I could feel the depletion. The next day was very similar from the outside. Same hospital, same workload, same type of responsibilities. I was still fasting, but I had slept more the night before. And at some point during the day, I chose to pause for a few minutes instead of continuing to push through. While waiting in the hallway for a patient to be ready to be seen, I took a minute to take a slow, deliberate breath. Nothing complicated, just a conscious reset. And while I was doing that, the nurse noticed it and asked me what I was doing. And then I briefly talked about how simple breathing and resetting techniques can help with resilience and focus throughout the day. It was a short conversation, nothing dramatic, but I could tell it meant something to her. And strangely, that small moment of connection gave me energy instead of taking it away. And later, when I walked into patient rooms, I found myself slowing down just slightly. Not extending visit times significantly, but just being more intentional with eye contacts and listening and being present. And I could feel that difference. The workload hadn't changed, but my internal state had. I felt more grounded, more connected. And by the end of the day, I felt fulfilled rather than depleted. Now, reflecting on those 2 days helped me see something more clearly. The first day wasn't catastrophic. It was just steady pressure without recovery. And because I didn't manage my energy well, that pressure felt heavier than it needed to be. And by the end of the day, I wasn't just tired, I was disconnected. I wasn't as present. Now, in contrast, the second day had almost the same demands, but because I had slept more and I took few intentional breaks and small moments to reset, the pressure didn't accumulate the same way. I was still busy, but I didn't feel internally drained. And that's when it clicked for me that overwhelm isn't a problem. Unmanaged overwhelm is. See, pressure and overwhelm are part of life, but when they keep repeating and we don't recover from them, that's when something begins to shift. At first, it's subtle. You're still productive, you're still responsible, but you feel less present, less energized, less connected to the impact of what you're doing. And if that pattern continues long enough, that's when overwhelm slowly becomes burnout. And burnout doesn't just happen from one heavy day. It happens when many heavy days stack up without restoration. And what also concerned me about that first day that I was operating in survival mode without fully realizing it. See, survival mode is subtle because it allows you to function. You meet expectations. You check the boxes. You move efficiently. But you're no longer fully engaged. You're simply trying to get through the day. And the problem is that if survival mode becomes your default setting, it creates a cycle. You feel tired, so you push harder to compensate. And because you're pushing and plowing through, you end up skipping pauses and get disconnected emotionally to conserve energy. You finish drained, you sleep poorly, and you start the next day already behind. And if that pattern continues long enough, what began as normal overwhelm slowly shifts into something deeper. And over time, that's what causes a state of burnout. So how do you prevent overwhelm from slowly turning into burnout? First, you need to manage your energy well, by sleeping well, hydrating well, and eating healthy. Second, build small resets into your day. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be a few minutes of intentional breathing, stepping away briefly, or pausing before entering the next task. And that little pause can interrupt the cycle of constant output. Because if you never reset, you just keep stacking pressure on top of pressure. And here's another big tip that helps. Be intentional about connecting with people around you. See, when we get overwhelmed, we get into task mode. We just want to get through the list. But something interesting happens when we slow down, even for a minute, and actually connect with the person in front of you. It doesn't drain you, it actually gives you more energy. Connection also restores the meaning and the impact of your work. And when that happens, the weight of your work feels lighter. And before we close, let me leave you with this. Overwhelm and burnout don't have to take over your life. Manage your energy well. Sleep better. Eat healthy. Build small reset moments into your day. Be intentional about connecting with other people around you. Stay connected to why you're doing what you're doing. Remind yourself of the impact your work is actually making. Because most of the time, it's not the workload itself that is overwhelming us, it's how we carry it. So work smarter, not harder. Protect your energy and remember to enjoy your day. And as we usually say, every habit you build, every effort you make, it all adds up. So keep showing up because the small steps you take today are shaping the person you become tomorrow. And that's it for this episode, my friends. And if you like it, please share it with people around you because we all grow better when we do it together.